Hey, what up, everybody? Hope you had a great day. My name is Jay, and you're watching Clouded Reactions. So, remember, it's a history video, so we're going to keep the intro nice and short and sweet. But dang, is it just me, or are the history videos getting shorter and shorter? I remember them being like 18 minutes long, 24 minutes long. Sodas was only like, what, 13 minutes? And this one's only 14 minutes. And it's only one part, which is really crazy. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It's just been a while since I listened to a Sabaton history video. But yeah, we're going to find out what this one's all about. We pretty much already know. But this is titled The Battle of Kursk. Let's hop right on in.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Per from Sabaton, and this is Sabaton History.
One of the largest tank battles in history, in 1943 in World War II, resulted in the Soviet Union gaining the initiative on the Eastern Front, which it would hold until the end of the war.
And our song Panzerkampf became one of the most unexpected Sabaton popular songs we ever did.
Into the motherland, the German army march.
Wonder why it was considered one of the most popular of all the songs that they did. This is only track 9. And they had already had 40 to 1. They had, like I said, Ghost Division, Unbreakable. Like, they already had some bangers. And they already had an album before this. So, like, I don't understand. They had, Prima Victoria. So, like, well, let's find out.
The Panzerkampf was fought between the Wehrmacht and the Red Army, and here's the story behind it.
The Russian counteroffensives that had begun in November 1942 had pushed the Germans not only mostly out of the Caucasus, but also crossed into eastern Ukraine and southern Belarus. By March 1943, they had created a large salient deep into the German front lines between the cities of Orel and Kharkov. This was the Kursk salient and was an obvious target for German high command. By cutting off the salient, they would not only shorten the front line, but also trap a large amount of Russian soldiers and material. Such a success would give the Germans time to rebuild after the recent losses at Stalingrad. Both the forces of Army Group South, led by Generalfeldmarschall Erich von Manstein, and those of Army Group North under Generaloberst Walter Model were to perform a massive pincer movement that would smash through on both sides of the salient and encircle the troops inside. But many German generals expressed doubts. See, the Russian army of 1943 was not the same army they so easily outmaneuvered in 1941. By now, the Soviets were much more competent in using their deep battle doctrine, and they were already preparing a summer offensive to use the salient to their own advantage, since they also knew of the German plans. The British had cracked the German ciphers and given intel to the Soviets, so Stavka, Russian high command, had convinced Stalin to delay the Soviet offensive until after the Germans had exhausted their own against the Russian defenses. Then the Soviet counteroffensive would easily punch through the German lines and collapse the whole Army Group center.
So is that following the whole let the enemy punch themselves out, and then when they're finally tired and exhausted of resources, then that's when the counter-strike really hits? Okay. Remember, this is the art of war, so I remember, well, maybe not each track is following an exact Sun Tzu rule of knowing your enemy and stuff like that. But like I said, I wonder what some of these tracks date back to for the Sun Tzu's art of war.
Summer 1943, tanks line up in thousands, as far the eye can see. Ready for the onslaught.
Man, could you imagine like that video, Hardy Gunn's video from the Panzerkampf video that I just did? It really captures, war. And could you imagine seeing, I mean, you have a fleet of tanks yourself, but also seeing across the fields and seeing their own fleet of tanks. It's like, yeah, you can't run away. There's no like hiding anywhere. You have to just go into uncertain deaths. Maybe you survive, maybe you don't. But that mindset, man, you really got to be hardy. You got to have like that mental aptitude of just like ready to do what has to be done. If you get taken, then God's will be done. But I mean, I understand people are doing it right now. Unfortunately, the whole thing. I don't want to get into that, but
Ready for the fight. Way march into the trap.
So, tens of thousands of Russian workers began building an enormous defense-in-depth system, digging trenches and tank traps on 5,000 kilometers of front line. The defense was
Wonder how many mines that was. That's a large area. Like, how many mines have to been deployed? Just scattered randomly. That's
centered mostly on strong points manned by rifle battalions. Each also had 4.5 centimeter anti-tank guns. Russian pioneers lay up to 1 million mines all around the salient, both anti-personnel and anti-tank mines, mostly in front of their forward line. Red Army General Konstantin Rokossovsky had also a strong mobile defense force that would engage the Germans if they managed to penetrate the front lines. All in all, the Soviet forces enjoyed at least a 2-to-1 advantage in men, tanks, artillery, and aircraft. Von Manstein disregarded those numbers since he still believed in the inferior quality of the Soviet troops. Model was less optimistic and very much against the whole operation, but despite his doubts, Adolf Hitler and German High Command urged him to concentrate all his forces and attack from the north. Model, however, prepared for a possible Russian counterattack and held the 2nd Panzer Armee around the city of Orel in reserve. He also prepared the Hagenstellung, a defensive line the Germans could fall back on if everything went to hell. On July 5th, 1943, the German offensive began. Okay, it actually began with a Soviet artillery barrage that rained down on the German front lines. See, the day before, captured German soldiers had revealed the exact hour the offensive would begin, so tactical surprise was lost. Still, the German forces were soon moving toward the Russian lines under their own opening barrage of heavy artillery, mortars, and Nebelwerfer rockets. As usual, the advance was spearheaded by the German tank divisions and mobile Sturm divisions, but the minefields and the Soviet resistance slowed them down. However, the Germans had sent new weapon systems into the battle. Ferdinand tank destroyers could outrange their Russian counterparts, and German pioneers led radio-controlled demolition tanks into the minefields to clear the path. Well-positioned Tiger tanks could destroy whole groups of Russian tanks that were sent out in premature counterattacks. In the air, the superior German FW-190As were able to suppress the Russian fighter and bomber attacks, despite their disadvantage in numbers.
You could see how the Germans were so cocky. You know, they had more tanks, they had more people, they had more advanced equipment. Yeah, I can see how, but, you know, never underestimate your enemy. Maybe that might be the Sun Tzu Art of War in that one. Sun Tzu's Art of War. Never underestimate your enemy.
So, as the days dragged on, the German advance took out several major strongpoints, and they even penetrated the first line of Rokossovsky's defenses. But the large defensive system slowly but steadily whittled away the German forces. Tanks were damaged by the mines, and the relentless Russian artillery caused heavy casualties among the German infantry. German tank losses weren't actually as high as Russian sources may suggest. Only around 10% of Model's tanks were lost, for example. The others took light damage, mostly to their tracks, which could usually be repaired in the field. Nonetheless, the Soviets achieved what they hoped for. They blunted the German spear, all while the Russian tank armies were building up for their own killing blow. On the 11th of August, Model finally called off the fruitless offensive. Only the elite SS Panzer divisions Totenkopf, Das Reich, and Leibstandarte in the south were still making progress as they reached the fields near a small village called Prokhorovka. The Stavka wanted to attack now, before Model could redeploy his panzers. The long-awaited counterattack, Operation Kutuzov, would set loose the Russian tank armies. Early in the morning of the 12th, Operation Kutuzov began.
Reinforce the front line, force the Axis to retreat. Send in all the reserves, securing their defeat.
south, those SS Panzer divisions were surprised by a wave of armor that was heading their way. Some 500 tanks that attacked the unprepared Germans. The backbone of the Russian tank force was the upgraded T-34-76 model, which made around 70% of the tanks. But most of the rest was made out of light tanks. Only a few heavy KV tanks were there. The Germans had far fewer tanks, not even 300, but those SS divisions were the first to receive the Tiger and Panther models that outclassed the T-34 in range and whose armor could not be penetrated by the lighter tanks. And yet, in larger groups, the T-34 was still extremely dangerous. The tanks clashed on the fields of Prokhorovka. The German tanks desperately fought off the Soviet tanks at point-blank range. German Panzer Grenadiers even resorted to ramming them with their half-tracks. Despite heavy losses, though, the Soviets forced the
Germans were desperate. They turned their cars into their tanks into freaking bumper cars.
Them with their half-tracks. Despite heavy losses, though, the Soviets forced the Germans to retreat.
Fields of Prokhorovka, where the heat of battle burned, suffered heavy losses, and the tide of war was turned. Driving back the Germans, fighting on full front, hunt them out of Russia, out of Soviet land.
In the north, the counteroffensive began with a massive artillery strike, obliterating much of the German forward positions of the 2nd Panzer Armee. The Soviet counterattack here would be even more deadly than in the south. Model's foresight had paid off, and the 2nd Panzer Armee was able to fend off the first wave of Russian tanks attacking towards Orel. But this was just the initial engagement. The overwhelming Russian artillery and armor soon broke into the German positions all over the front, and Model was forced to pull back just to prevent encirclement, without even waiting for authorization from Hitler. However, the Soviets failed to exploit their advantage.
Yeah, when death is right in front of you, you're not going to wait for high command to tell you what to do. You see all of them, and like he said, to prevent being encircled, you getting out of there. He'd be like, you know what, F Hitler, I'm going back.
Forced to pull back just to prevent encirclement, without even waiting for authorization from Hitler. However, the Soviets failed to exploit their advantage, nor realize how close the German defenses were to collapsing. So the Germans managed a fighting retreat. As the Red Army captured the major prize of Orel on August 5th, the German army retreated into their Hagen position. And it was that which ultimately saved them. German high command was now forced to face the fact that the German army was not able to fight high-intensity battles on such a large scale any longer. The offensive had been a disaster, for not only did it not bring victory, it cost the German army the strategic initiative on the Eastern Front, and they would never regain it. The offensive had cost the Russians dearly, yes, and losses were perhaps 4 times higher than those of the Germans, but the Russians could replace their losses, which the Germans by this time could not. The Russians were on the offensive for good.
The end of the Third Reich draws near. Its time has come to an
That feeling of like knowing you're up here and just got pegged way down low, and like the realization, like holy crap, we're not as tough as we thought we were. At least not against this enemy.
Third Reich draws near. Its time has come to an end. The end of an era is here. It's time
Jesus Christ.
to attack.
Now, Panzerkampf is from the album Art of War, but it was not one of the singles or anything, right?
Now, it was very interesting that we didn't believe so much in the song Panzerkampf initially.
Okay.
And there were so many songs that we felt that were more stronger on the Art of War album. Even though this album is now over 10 years,
Yeah.
this specific song can climb to the position number 1 of all Sabaton songs.
Panzerkampf! Into the motherland.
Oh man, I should have watched their live. I didn't see no option for that. I typed in Sabaton Panzerkampf, but I didn't see a concert version or anything. Dang. Ugh, missing out on so much good content. Look at that. Holy moly.
Into the motherland, the German army marched.
So why do you suppose that is? What is it about it that you think resonates with people?
I think that the song represents a lot that is Sabaton.
Right?
It has a huge scale battle. Tanks, more tanks, and even more tanks, and most tanks. A lot of our fans, this is what they want to hear about. Also, it has the power, the sing-along things,
Yeah.
very powerful chorus.
Thinking even back before that, when you guys wrote the song, was it written to be a typical Sabaton song with tanks and stuff, or was it were you specifically thinking about that battle?
We were specifically thinking about that battle because all the songs on the Art of War represents one of the chapters in the scripts.
Right.
The Art of War.
The Sabaton album, The Art of War, is named after one of the world's classic pieces of literature. It is traditionally attributed to the ancient Chinese military leader Sun Tzu, though some of it likely dates from before his time. It's roughly 2,500 years old, and though it is ancient military strategy, it is in many ways timeless and has applications beyond the military, such as in business, law, and even sports. This is because its 13 chapters do not only deal with things like waging war or incendiary attacks, but also include the use of spies, identifying weak spots, and strategic planning. Basically, winning the fight without having to engage in battle, outsmarting your opponent. It is required reading for executives at many Japanese companies, is recommended reading for all U.S. military intelligence personnel, was widely studied by the KGB, and
I did not know that was a mandatory read for Japan, in Japan. For some companies, it said. That's, wow.
it is required reading for executives at many Japanese companies, is recommended reading for all U.S. military intelligence personnel, was widely studied by the KGB, and Bill Belichick, head coach of the NFL's New England Patriots, who just won their record 6th Super Bowl under him, has used the lessons of the art of war in his strategic preparations for football games. Again, one of the most influential texts in history.
That was Panzerkampf, chapter number 9 from The Art of War. See you next week.
On the Sabaton History Channel.
All right, everyone.
Nice.
Remember to subscribe to Sabaton History, the regular Sabaton channel. Check out World War II and Time Ghost as well, all right? Right here, we got a playlist. More videos like this. It's good. You want to click this.
It's good.
And also, remember to support us on Patreon.
That must have been a bad, gloomy day when they realized that they just lost control of the war. All because of those decisions that, I mean, there was self-inflicted wounds. I mean, I said it, I think, in the past 3 videos already. What would have happened if Hitler would have just stayed away from Russia? What would have happened? It's kind of scary to think about. Luckily, that's all we can do is think about it, because thank God it went the way it did. But man, that's, interesting video. Always enjoy reading. This has got a lot of Russian callbacks. That's crazy. I thought there would be like more diverse, more different armies, more different countries. That is crazy. Well, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. I certainly enjoyed the video. I'm pretty sore because I had to work out. After hearing the song, I worked out for like a half hour. Then I came back to record the history video. That'll be it for today. Hope you guys enjoy your guys' day. Hope you guys stay safe out there. Stay blessed. And I will catch you guys in the next one.